Speaker, Dr. S.N. Omkar is Distinguished Chief Research Scientist at the Department of Aerospace Engineering, Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, and an Honorary Professor in Yoga at Vedic Wellness University. He serves as the Chairperson of the Standardization of Drones Committee and the convener of the Agriculture Drones Special Committee under the Bureau of Indian Standards. He is a recipient of Karnataka State Rajyotsava Award and the Satish Dhawan Lifetime Achievement Award for Image Processing.
It goes without saying that the speaker's knowledge and experience in application of artificial intelligence in maritime reconnaissance and security makes him an invaluable asset. Now I would thus like to invite Dr. S.N. Omkar to deliver his presentation.
Namaste. I'll be making a brief presentation about the most talked technologies of the day, the drones, AI, 6G. And towards the end of the presentation, I will also make a presentation of some of the work that we are doing in the related area. So, you know that coastal line is quite strong and wide. I think it is about 7,500 kilometers in our country, more than that little bit. And yes, it is a very humongous task to guard. Therefore, from this podium, I salute to all of you for doing this human service. Next slide. Oh, here it is. Thanks. Okay, so apart from that, even from the business perspective, see, we hold a lot of value for anyone who actually would take up this as a business venture also in terms of developing technologies. These are all from the published data. The global maritime security market is ever growing with a CAGR of about 4.5%. And in 2023, well, these are other things that we need to keep in mind, that the maritime industry experienced significant cyber attacks with ransomware and distributed denial of service attacks, which are most predominant. Therefore, while we develop these technologies, we should be aware of some of these impending new threats that could affect. And if you look at the drone market itself, I mean, overall defense-related market, that is also a very promising one, and with a CAGR of 7.8% is the prediction. But again, accompanying threats, as we have always been talking, as the previous speaker also addressed, the commercial maritime sector faces unprecedented security challenges as drone attacks intensify, and particularly in the Red Sea region, they have observed maximum drone attacks. So looking at the applications of UAVs in the maritime defense, first is the intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, which I think many are already working. And the most needed is, of course, the search and rescue operations, assisting in locating distressed vessels and individuals with advanced sensors. Then maritime patrol and border security, which is to be automated in some sense, monitoring coastal regions to prevent illegal activities such as smuggling, and if this activity detection can be automated, that is one of the crucial concerns. We may have all types of video analytics, but how do we use some of the technological advancements, especially in AI? So if you look at also the surface vehicles, of course, the left side I am also trying to put some pictures of some indigenous developments in the country. You can read along. But the surface vehicles, uninhabited, we will use the word uninhabited instead of unmanned to prevent the gender bias. So uninhabited surface vehicles, one is the mine countermeasures, safely detecting and neutralizing naval mines. Then when it comes to anti-submarine warfare, equipped with sonar systems to track and monitor the submarine activities. Then maritime surveillance, conducting persistent surveillance missions and especially providing real-time data and if possible making it automated through some of the deep learning techniques is what is needed. If you look at the challenges, one is the environmental challenge, another is security and regulatory challenges, because our country, if you look at the demographic model, it's very complex. We have all the way from sea level to about 4,000 meters high, where we have to operate, temperatures plus minus, I think, 50 degrees centigrade, and the population density is very high. Therefore, we see even today, for example, I happen to chair the drone standardization in the country. We have not been able to actually process this whole concept of BVLOS because there are a lot of other challenges which in other countries it is not that much. Then we do have technical and operational challenges. We will see them in little bit detail. One is the environmental challenges, adverse weather conditions, high winds. For example, today you take any drones, how much gusts and wind conditions they can take, heavy precipitation, then fog, these things can impair operations. And any such devices which are highly environmental dependent would be some sort of impediment in the applications. Sea state variability, changing sea states that affect the stability and navigation of the, if you look at the surface vehicles. Then saltwater corrosion, prolonged exposure. For example, most of these equipment, they have motors, etc., and other components. How do you prevent, how do you make them corrosion resistant? Because in any of these devices that you take which have rotary movements, the depreciation costs are invariably very, very high. Coming to these regulatory challenges, detection and countermeasures, both applies to the flying and the surface vehicles. Today, the speeds are very, very fast. I think that was one of the questions, how much time it would take, because even if you detect at 10 kilometers, you don't really have too much of time at your disposal. Your reaction time has to be very, very fast, because things have improved. Because if you take the fixed wing also, we have already clocked 900 kilometers per hour. So you can imagine, even if you detect that, considering the distance, the reaction times required are very, very important. Then regulatory compliance, especially when it comes to the maritime, a lot of international borders you encounter. Now, what is the policy there? How much you can take? What are the regulatory policies between the two countries, etc., need to be looked at. Then most importantly, cyber security threats. Because cyber security today, well addressed in case of banks, not though foolproof, but yet when it comes to drones, etc., it is still a very, very challenging thing. For your information, we have just published on BIS website the cyber security standards as applied to unmanned aerial vehicles. You can all go through that and what in that we can take, because this would involve more than just, because that we have done mostly for the civilian applications, but when it comes to the military and especially when it comes to the maritime applications, I think a lot more need to be looked at. Technological and operational challenges. One is the communication interference. The surface vehicles often encounter challenges such as communication interference, dynamic obstacles, because you could have other vehicles moving that detect and avoid, and with proper communication is essential. Then both UAVs and USVs face constraints with respect to the power supply, limiting their operational range and duration, which is very, very critical. Navigation and collision avoidance. This is one of the most important things. How do we handle this? Of course, we have been developing a lot of algorithms. In fact, in our lab and my colleague Professor Suresh is there. our labs have been working on how to handle these both for surface vehicles and aerial vehicles. So this is where, because of the increased number of these kind of vehicles, you have helicopters, aircrafts, you have ships, other boats, so many things, then this traffic management becomes a critical issue. So this so-called UTM, or the uninhabited traffic management, becomes very important. This ecosystem is separate from but complementary to traditional ATMs. We should remember that. And because of the growing applications of UAVs, now we are talking of an integrated airspace. There is no separate thing possible just for ATM and drone, because drone space is also growing in a very, very significant way. The purpose is, of course, enabling management of low altitude drone operations as well as high altitude. Then relevance is essential for coordinating maritime UAV operations and ensuring regulatory compliance. The challenges, obviously, the connectivity limitations, especially when you go into the sea environments, robust network infrastructure, etc. Even on terrestrial, we see that many places the networks are not that easily accessible. High latency and data delays. Today, even with the modern 5G, the latency is quite a matter for communication and decision making. Then there are regulatory gaps. Standardized global framework, especially for maritime UAV traffic, to the best of my knowledge, is still in the nascent stage. So this is what we foresee. You definitely need a AI-powered traffic flow management, because we need intelligence on board of even the vehicles. The simplest reason is we cannot just presume everything in the ab initio, because this is a very dynamic environment. For example, even if you take the drone traffic on the terrestrial sense itself, even if you set some protocol, suddenly if there is a medical drone that is coming, futuristic, then that has to obviously take precedence over other drones. Now, how do you dynamically change, and how do you create proper drone corridors, and how do you create a decentralized UTM model, because it cannot be centralized. As on the move, things should be able to happen. That's where the blockchain and AI-driven systems are very, very important. Then integration with non-terrestrial networks. With the advent of 6G, I'm sure it is going to happen, because we really can't completely depend on the terrestrial network that is there. So SATCOMs are really essential. Well, 6G is already we have been talking about, a lot of experiments is happening, and its role is ultra high speed, then sub-millisecond latency, because now with the current networks, it is about 5 milliseconds. That is not really sufficient. Then AI-driven optimization, especially with the advances in machine learning, but there are certain topics to be discussed which I'll highlight, because the moment you say machine learning, the models are quite heavy. And if you want to put it on a flying vehicle in particular, because one is the power. They are all power guzzlers. We need to be mindful about the power consumption and how do we optimize that. So key benefits, scalability with 6G is a lot more easier. Then real-time data exchange, very much possible. Facilitate high-speed surveillance and threat detection. Then advanced cybersecurity protocols, they are built into the 6G. So that is another use. So I take this from one of the published literature. I have quoted it below. So what we foresee is, it is not the centralized computing, the edge devices or the edge computing, that is really the go. You cannot centralize computing, you do, and then give the command to the edge or the peripheral devices. The peripheral devices should also be enabled to compute. This is where edge computing becomes important. And the communication, drone to network, drone to satellites, drone to other local networks, all these four things have to be enabled. So they have configured this for automobile vehicle, and I take the liberty from the authors to replace it by the ships. And the same technology holds good for these type of vehicles also. So today we talk about cloud. Whatever you talk about the clouds, and there is an initiative from Government of India to have their own dedicated cloud, not to depend on any other commercially available cloud. That is a very great initiative. But despite that, the high latency and limited bandwidth, the security risks, and high cost for scalability becomes an issue. And this is where edge computing is very, very essential. So this would definitely reduce the latency. Edge computing processes data locally, so reducing latency and better and faster decision making. Then enhanced bandwidth. Data is processed closer, reducing the bandwidth requirements. Improved security, definitely because you are not so open. Then increased operational range, because edge computing enables expanded coverage and increased operational range. Added to this, we definitely need to look at the deep learning or the AI-based techniques. This would definitely help in object detection. A lot of work, we have also done some work on it, which I will show some work that we have done in this area. You can identify the objects of interest. You can do activity detection. For example, something like then threat assessment, environmental monitoring, data analysis. All this is a possibility. The challenges, of course, is the resource constraints, model size, power consumption, model complexity. How do you overcome this? And to overcome that, we have what is known as quantization. This also we are working now. So the right side graph shows you the size, shows you the number of parameters, and the y-axis shows you the accuracy, and the x-axis shows you the operations or the complexity. As you can see, for example, if you look at NASNet, which is very popular, the accuracy is very high, but flops required is also high, complexity is high, number of parameters is also considerable. Now if you want to change that, because this is very uniquely done, and if you change the architecture, it won't help. Therefore, without changing the model architecture or complex hardware, how can I get advantage? That is through quantization. So quantization simply means floating point operations converted to integer, and do that. So today we are talking about not finally do the quantization. You develop quantization aware training itself. That is very important. So this will reduce the model size, improve efficiency, enhance performance, and you can see the decrease in the energy, because this is very, very important. If you look at the energy consumption of the deep learning architecture in the world, it is 7th, it stands 7th apart from other 6 leading countries. So much power is being consumed, so we should be mindful. So model selection, quantization, deployment, monitoring and optimization is what we need to think about. Then applications in identifying threats, real-time monitoring, search and rescue, this is all where you can use. So we have done this work at our lab. This is one of the flagship projects we have done. This is called Eye in the Sky. Using the drones, can you identify when the video image comes, can you automatically identify activities like stealing, punching, kicking, etc.? Our student did a mock drill. We trained a data set and then used the deep learning network, and we are able to identify. We can identify the multiple violence activities in any given scene, and lat-long location can be highlighted so that law enforcers can take action regarding that. So this we published in a very leading international conference, and we were also interviewed by the British Broadcast Corporation, BBC, for our work. Then we have done how do you merge, because when you have cloudy environment, you only have a SAR image, optical image is not available. How do you merge that? Then flood detection. You can fly and detect how many people are caught up in any series, including the animals, etc. Sorry, I'm rushing through. Then high-speed road tracking. Any path you can track automatically. This is vision-based navigation. Then when you have obstacles, you can fly the drone from the wood. So we have used the optical flow techniques, and other method is the linear regression-based technique based on AI stuff. Then situations like this is you can latch on to a moving vehicle. Of course, when you have sea, the situation is different. I understand the complexities, but for a moving UGV, we have proved just by one single camera how you can perch. And this is a project we did for Northeastern Space Application Center. The drone that can land on water and take off from water. I'll just show you the takeoff and then proceed next because I think I have exceeded my time. So these are, you can have small vehicles which can take off and land, and both aerodynamic and hydrodynamic design for the hull part of the vehicle and the floats are essential. So very smooth takeoff. I have the whole video of loitering and then smooth landing, but I will not take too much of time. And this is another important that we did. This is called the disguised face identification. Just to tell you that this was also featured in BBC. That clip is what you are seeing. Even when a person is covered with a mask or a mush and a beard and hat, we could still identify who that person is. You can see even a girl wearing a mustache and a beard, we were able to pick up. So this is some of the things that we have accomplished using machine learning or deep learning techniques. We use a 14-point face architecture, but one of the problem is AI and ethics, because when we published this, we published under the guise that even if a criminal disguises, we are able to identify. So one of the professors from MIT said that this is a dangerous algorithm because you can also identify a celebrity who would cover himself and come. So AI and ethics is a big topic. So whenever you are using AI, recently the Hopfield, who got the Nobel Prize for his work in physics, which resulted in machine learning, he himself has said that AI technology should be seen very seriously. So these are all some ingenious things that our country is doing. I will rush through this, I am sorry, because of the time. So ultimately, the future is that AI, 6D technology, cloud and edge computing. Jai Bharat, Namaste.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your insights with us. Your wealth of knowledge and expertise on the subject is truly impressive and has left a lasting impact on all of us. Now, I would request Deputy Inspector General Jamal Taha, Tatrakshak Medal, Deputy Director General Aviation, to please come up on the stage to kindly present a token of appreciation to Dr. S.N. Omkar.
Thank you so very much. See, quickly, just to cut short, sea is a porous border. And our idea is that there are many people who camouflage. They come up in different, the size is going to be the same. The idea is they can give you the dodge to the human eye, but in case if you utilize artificial intelligence in a mechanical fashion, that's a mechanical AI-powered eye, so that at least we can get these dodges in blind and check it out. So I would request, being in the Institute of Sciences Bangalore, just kindly work it out, and in case some technologies are...
We will be very happy to work with you.
And thank you so very much for your enlightened lecture.
Thank you, sir.